Guys, great to be here. And I would just say as well, guys, there's some great speakers lined up today. Definitely worth sticking around the whole day, particularly for Ben at the end, because Ben is going to be talking about a fantastic opportunity, which I'm actually going to mention in my session as well. So I think probably what the best thing for me to do now, Dasha, is if I share my screen, I do have some slides that I kind of like to go through today. And when we get that, which you should hopefully be able to see now, basically, I just wanted to kind of start off with, before we kind of delve into too much detail, is kind of say, look, at the moment, we're all kind of facing this kind of like new environment that we're working within. And I've just brought up some stats on the screen here, which are kind of, I guess, indicative of what we've all been dealing with. Obviously, not only just the past few months, but also kind of looking over what happens in Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And I think, what's interesting here is that if you look at these stats, we can see some interesting things going on. And what I'd like to know, and if you can put this in the comments would be great, is that when you look at these stats, are these things that you kind of say, yeah, that seems like something that we've experienced as a brand? Or are you kind of saying, that doesn't really seem like it stacks up for us? It just kind of be interesting, obviously, to see sort of anecdotally what you guys think about this. And we can come back to those comments just at the end, but just kind of take a look at these stats and just kind of think, okay, right, we're kind of setting a bit of a tone here for what we're going to talk about. And let's just kind of keep these in mind as we go through on the session, obviously, today. So just by means of a very short introduction, as Dasha said, my name's Adam. I am the CEO and co-founder of Blend. And what I'm going to be talking to you today about are essentially retargeting strategies for you guys as e-commerce merchants. And really, my goal today is very, very simple. I've got 3 very specific tips for retargeting and driving those profitable sales over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So to answer you guys, let's dig in and let's get started. So first of all then, I'm going to dive straight in. And the first thing to say is start spending now. I can't say that clear enough. I'm going to go into this in more detail, but I think, if we think about that initial slide that I showed you, when we look at ad costs over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we have seen that increase of 2.3 times. Now, for all of us using Facebook ads, me included, as a marketer for my own business and also for our clients' businesses, we want to avoid that. And what I'm going to do now is look at how we can actually get around that and kind of move away from those higher costs that are there. So first of all then, let's look at some stats over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Now, we've got some stats here on CPM, which essentially, for those that you aren't aware of this metric, it's the cost per 1,000 impressions on Facebook. Now, I know we're looking at 2017 data here, but if I'm honest with you, the trend that you see always is pretty much exactly the same over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And I guess, the reasoning behind that is pretty simple because, look, there is a limited supply of how many ads can be shown to the users on Facebook. And at the same time, we've got this big spike in demand, excess demand, where everyone and their dog is wanting to obviously advertise on Facebook. And really all that's happening here is that the algorithm is saying, okay, right, we have a limited supply, we have lots of demand. And of course, the later you leave that, the more that demand is going to increase and the higher price you're going to pay. So I don't probably need to explain it to you guys, but obviously that's essentially what we're seeing happening here. And I think, if we think about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, I know all of you will be thinking about the deal that you're going to do because Black Friday, Cyber Monday is going to be all about deals. It was obviously Prime Day yesterday and day before in the UK. I'm not sure about where else in the world it was as well. But obviously, it's all about that deals point this time of the year. And if you've got Facebook ad costs going up, what tends to happen too is because of those offers being in place, you're going to see your average order value perhaps actually come down. And what I'm saying here is that, look, your margins, our margins as marketers are going to be super tight if you leave it too late. So in a way, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, hang a minute, shall I just not use Facebook ads? Should I bother at all? And my honest answer is no, I don't think that at all. But what I want to do is to tell you a little bit about what we advise here at Blend with our clients. And the best way to do that is if we have a look at this slide on the screen. Now, when it comes to thinking about, obviously, your spend on advertising with Facebook, and equally, with Google as well, and any kind of marketing spend, you really want to be kind of slicing that into 3 separate pots. So that's your acquisition, it's your retargeting, and your retention. So it's your kind of 3 different stages that your buyers are going to be at. So what we need to do is kind of look at these in more detail and say, how do we actually change those different portions of what we use over and towards and actually beyond the Black Friday, Cyber Monday period? Now, from my perspective, I see 2 common mistakes. And the one is that a lot of people say, well, hey, we want to get new customers in. We want to bring those customers, we want to sell to them. And all of that cash goes into acquisition. And then what happens is that on the other flip side, people also then maybe completely forget about retention. So what the problem is with these strategies is that they're great as short-term strategies, but what they're not great at is saying, look, we'll get the success within Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, but what we don't be able to do then is say, actually, let's continue that success into the new year. And, you know, all of you I know will be like me, is kind of saying, look, it's great to have that spike in cash flow at obviously that sort of Q4 period, but we also want to maintain that and build upon those sales that we've made and continue that obviously into the next year. So if we look at the graph on the screen, what you'll see is that I want you to pay attention to two things. The first thing is that retargeting budget, so that kind of blue color. And then if you look at that acquisition budget, so that sort of dark purple color, and look at what's happening there. So what I'm showing here is that from now, i.e., you know, kind of next week, October week 3, what we need to be doing is slowly but surely increasing that retargeting budget, and at the same time bringing down the acquisition budget. Because what we're saying here is that you're taking advantage of those lower retargeting costs when we can, and we're avoiding those higher acquisition costs. And what a lot of people do is that they will do it the flip side. They'll actually get the worst acquisition cost possible close to the time, and then obviously not actually take benefit of those low retargeting costs that we've got right now. And by doing this, what you're then going to do is say, look, if I look at my spend from now until obviously the end of Black Friday and beyond, you can look at that actually not as just your pure return on ad spend, your ROAS number, but look at it as, okay, look, this is the portion I put in. This is the return that I've got from both my acquisition, my retargeting pre and post Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and evaluate actually the return that you're getting and the margin that you're getting a lot more effectively. So I would say definitely, you know, take a screenshot. Obviously, I'm sure Dasha will share these slides after as well, but think about your budget and what you're doing. And beyond this, look at those 3 different pots throughout the year. We always will be playing around with these different ways that we cut the budget that we've got for a client into these 3 different sections as we go throughout the year. So let's kind of look at kind of a particular strategy that you can deploy here. Now, what I want to do is kind of bring in some actual sort of, I guess, real ideas. Now, I guess what I would sort of say here is that as an agency, you know, for us, yes, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is really important for clients, but for us as an agency, technically our Black Friday, Cyber Monday in terms of volume is kind of 6 or 7 weeks behind you guys as merchants, because for us, you know, the busiest time that we're competing with our agencies for revenue is actually right now in October, because a lot of merchants will be contacting us and trying obviously to work with us. And equally, we will be trying to pitch business. So 6 or 7 weeks prior, what we would ordinarily do is that we would be running some ads to then take advantage of the acquisition cost of the cheaper behind, and then do the retargeting piece afterwards. And I've just got a very simple example here, an ad that we ran last year. And what we did here is that we actually used an acquisition ad, which was then getting people to sign up for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, an exclusive deal that we were offering with some development work. So what we could do is not only retarget the people that interact with us on the basis of that ad, but also the sign up that we got for it, use the email marketing with it as well. And I think, you know, from your guys' perspective as merchants who are probably selling products, some of you I know will be selling services, I'm making the point here that if you actually look at those acquisition ads now, and you're using tactics like, you know, get our best deals before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's a really good way to drive through that acquisition. And then with that as well, you'll be able to back that up with the retargeting that you can do with your email marketing. And the other nice thing is, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on, is that if you're building up that email list, you're going to also then be able to create those lookalike audiences off the back of that to actually send some of your acquisition budget to. So you're actually improving the future acquisition that you do by getting in those people earlier now to then obviously retarget to them in the future. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail just in a moment. So I kind of talked a little bit about lookalike audiences there, and I think it's probably worth me kind of talking about in a little bit more detail. And, you know, talking about lookalike audiences, first of all, is super important. And there's a lot of you will know already, when it comes to lookalike audiences, essentially what you can do here is that once you have an audience of 1,000 or more, what you can then do is actually essentially create a bunch of other people who have the same buying persona attributes that obviously those people have, that the algorithm essentially is giving to us. And what you'll know is that you can use actually 1%, 2%, 3% lookalike audiences for use within your acquisition budget. And what I would say here is that when you're doing that, test that 1%, 2%, 3%, because you might be surprised at the results that you get in terms of the click-through and the conversion on obviously those different levels. It's not just necessarily going to be that 1% is going to work the best for you. In some cases, we've seen the higher percentages work better and sometimes work worse. So it's worthwhile looking at that as a way to be spending some of that acquisition budget. And when I talk about acquisition budget, I also want to look at the second point here about using the traffic objective, because what we actually saw last year is that this always outperformed the other acquisition focus objectives. And what I would be very, I think probably the point I want to labor here a little bit more is that don't just focus on your ROAS, your return on ad spend for your acquisition, but do it by focusing on the engagement and the collation of emails, if that's a strategy you're deploying, because essentially that's what you're after to then do that retargeting later on. So don't get too bothered about the fact that the acquisition at that stage is not generating the sales, because our strategy here is not to do that. Our strategy is to get that engagement from the acquisition, use the retargeting later on to then actually truly focusing on what the return was on your particular campaigns. And just in terms of some more specifics here, you'll notice I've talked about the views of a canvas audience. And when it comes to retargeting budgets, we've again seen some very good results with views of canvas when you're using canvas-based ads for acquisition. And generally speaking, what we've seen is that you'll get a very high level of engagement in the acquisition stage, and then the retargeting of this has worked very well when you go to that kind of second level. So I think, just recapping on the points that I've been talking about here, guys, structure that spend now between now and January, and then focus not only on the short term, but also on the long term as well of what you're going to do after this Black Friday, Cyber Monday period. So coming on to my second point here is that when we think about Shopify apps, look, it's something that, if I'm honest with you, can be an absolute goldmine. And I know that sounds a little bit kind of like, okay, but genuinely it is. And I'm going to explain to you why that's the case at the moment. Now, as an agency, we have, I guess over the years, like you guys as merchants, I'm sure, been through, reviewed, used a ton of apps. There are literally thousands of apps available. And what we do now is that we scaled that right back around about 18 months ago. And we said, look, we know there are some fantastic apps out there. We only want to use as best-in-class apps. And we want to make sure that those apps can work together to give our clients what they need in terms of the returns they're expecting. And we actually have a stack of probably sort of 10, maximum 11 apps that we have. And they actually include the 4 that are shown on the screen now, which is Klaviyo, Loyalty Line, Recharging Gorgeous. And of course, we also have Rewind in our tech stack as well, which we kind of have as a standard on all of our Shopify client stores. But the beauty of using these 4 apps in particular is that you can actually get over 100 different types of retargeting audiences, which are barely used. And if you think about it, all of these apps here actually have a much better understanding of your customers than Facebook, because when it comes to Facebook, they don't have the ability to know what your customer does after that initial purchase. They don't know those inner details of actually their purchase cycle. So all of these apps on the screen at the moment can give you that data, and you can then plug that back into Facebook to then obviously be able to actually get a better return on your retargeting and your remarketing that you're going to do. So if you're not familiar with Klaviyo, essentially what Klaviyo is, it's a data-driven email marketing platform. And we use that with all of our clients when it comes to their email marketing. And to be honest with you, Klaviyo kind of forms the core part of our marketing strategy for a lot of clients we work with. And from that retargeting point of view, there are some really great segments you can set up in Klaviyo, one of which is called One Hit Wonders. Now, what this segment is basically a bunch of customers that you have had essentially one purchase from over high volume sales periods, but not purchased again. So essentially, the type of guy, the type of girl who is going to be buying over Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. And to be able to retarget this audience, you simply need to hop into Klaviyo, set up the segment, and then turn on the sync between Klaviyo and Facebook ads, and start using the audience. It really is that super simple, but it's very, very effective. And if I'm honest with you, when it comes to using Klaviyo, this is just kind of scratching the surface. You know, there are literally hundreds of different possibilities. So I'd highly recommend looking at your data. If you've got Klaviyo, great. If you haven't, see what you can get out of your email provider to see what you can then do from that remarketing point of view. Now, if you're a subscription business, it's probably highly likely you've heard of Recharge. And Recharge essentially enables you to sell a range of different types of subscription products based on your Shopify store. And I think, to be honest with you, and some of you, I know will be subscription-based businesses here on obviously the session today. But I think one of the biggest concerns for you guys and also for us managing those kind of stores is that churn rate. Look, customers who are going to decide to cancel their subscription, that's going to be the biggest killer of any subscription business. And one of the really great tools that Recharge has is that it can provide you with that data on which customers are at risk of churning. So again, data that Facebook couldn't possibly tell you. And if we think about this in the context of a brick and mortar store, if you're running a Facebook ad to this audience, it's kind of like being able to grab that customer and say, hey, before they walk out the door, I want to give you this very special deal. That essentially is what data that we've got here. So setting this up again is actually pretty straightforward, because you're going to go into Recharge, you're actually going to get that at churn risk data of the users that are at churn risk, plug that into Facebook, and then what you can then do is actually run an ad to them, giving them, say, for example, an incentive to extend their subscription with you. So if they're at that churn risk, you can focus on them in Facebook, maybe, let's say, give them a discount if they sign up to a 3-month, 6-month subscription, whatever it might be, and again, hitting that brief. So again, you're not going to be using that high acquisition cost. You're going to be benefiting from the actual lower retargeting cost that you've got, obviously with the data that you've got as well. Now, from a point of view of saying, well, look, I've got a bunch of apps I work with on my Shopify store. And you might be saying, well, what can I actually do? And the great thing is with a lot of apps is that it's pretty simple to find out what you can get hold of in terms of data. Now, on the screen at the moment, what you'll see is I've just kind of put some screenshots here of the different apps that we work with. So you've got Klaviyo, you've got Gorgeous, you've got Recharge. All of these guys and a lot of other apps have a specific integrations page. So what I would say is that after this session today, go and have a little look at the apps that you're using on your store, and then go and have a look at what integrations are there. And a lot of the time what it will say was it will give you the integrations with Facebook. So it might be worth doing is literally getting a list of all the different data points you can get from the different apps that you work with. And then off the back of that, then what you can do is say, look, based on this, I'm going to test this audience, this audience, this audience, do that now. And then again, you're benefiting from, again, a cheaper retargeting strategy that obviously you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have access to all of that brilliant app data that is available. Now, on this particular subject, it's something that we're very passionate about here at Blend. And we've actually put together something called the Shopify App Lookbook. And what I will actually do is I'll ask Dasha if you can share this with obviously the guys that have joined us afterwards. But what this does is it actually explains how you can get some of the leading Shopify apps to work together for your business. So it's not only, of course, about what they can do with Facebook, but how do you actually get those particular apps to sit together and share data between it so you can use them more effectively. And given we've still got a little bit of time before Black Friday, it really is a good time to think about how you could set up those more correctly. And a lot of them, if I'm honest with you, are fairly simple integrations you can set up. So even if you just go and set one integration up as your preparation for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, go ahead and do that and look at the results that you get. All right. So for the final step, I want to throw a little bit, I guess, a bit of a curveball, you might call it. And if I'm honest with you, I think, for me, SMS has been one of those things that it's kind of been a bit of a buzzword the past 6 or 12 months. And what I want to do is actually give you some indication of what the buzz is all about. Now, when I was putting together this presentation, this session, I was going to kind of leave this slide out because I thought it's a little bit showy. But at the same time, I also want to make you aware of what's possible. Now, 5,000% is actually the ROI that we generated for a client with SMS. And we actually used SMS bump with that particular client. And what's important here is that the majority of the sales that we generated for SMS were actually from retargeting those customers after acquiring the number. So it wasn't about cold SMS. It was about building up to a point where we were then going to be using automations to actually retarget them to get them to buy with SMS. And I think, at this point too, I'd like to probably talk to you about some of the questions that a lot of merchants have. And firstly, there's always a question around, well, look, are people actually going to give us their number? And depending on where you are in the world, culturally, giving out your number is slightly different. But what I would say is that when we've worked with a lot of brands in North America, we've actually seen that the mobile number collection has actually been 35% higher than email for one of our clients. So that's, again, anecdotal, but I think the point here is that don't be afraid that customers might not give you their mobile number, because a lot of the times they will. And the important thing to kind of note here is that you don't have to choose between saying, look, well, actually, can I get an email address and can I get an SMS? You can actually do them both. And this is what I wanted to show you on the screen now, is that when it comes to SMS, we as an agency predominantly work with SMS Bump, but we also obviously work with Klaviyo, again, one of our great partners who provide SMS services as well. And what you'll be able to see here on the screen is that it's actually pretty simple to be able to set up a sign up that requests both your email and your mobile number. So what's good about this is that you'll actually be able to see the preferences for the information that's shared and look at other tactics to get your mobile actually from sign up. So if you run this kind of actually pop up on your site, or you have an embedded form in there which is requesting information, you'd be able to then take a look at saying, well, look, in terms of completion rate of this, what proportion of people give us both, what proportion of us give us one, and which one is the strongest? And then you might, like some brands, okay, flip it straight to SMS and then actually go forward in terms of that. But what I would say here is that, if you're a brand that says, well, look, we haven't previously collected mobile numbers, I'm not sure, doing this via email to collect a mobile number is actually a very good way to get started. So you can tie this into your Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategy. And the way you can do that is that you can actually create an offer that's only available for tech subscribers. So very simple way of doing this is literally getting a campaign ready on email, going out to obviously your most valued customers and saying, look, actually, give us your mobile number. We're going to give you a Black Friday specific deal that's only available to SMS customers, and give that a try, because that, again, you can do that now. And that will then give you an ability to test to see, okay, look, are people actually prepared to give us their mobile numbers? And off the back of that, then you can actually test out those SMS campaigns to see if that's something that's actually going to work for you. So when we take a bit more of a detailed look is actually when we look at SMS, one of the big players here is really going to be about your automations. And I guess some of you might be surprised that actually you have the ability to pretty much do the same kind of automations that you have in email, but with SMS. Now, on the screen at the minute, what you're going to see here is that there is an ability to create these automations in SMS Bump. And what essentially we're doing here is that we can look at these as a way to maybe use abandoned cart. We can do product upsells. So all of the automations that you're kind of used to doing, as well as, of course, your retargeting, can be done with SMS. And we've actually built some really complex flows with SMS, whereby you're actually collating information and turning that into a conversational form of marketing. So, for example, we work with a jewelry brand, and one of the things we did with them is that we set them up with a facility with SMS, where if we had someone who was shopping for an engagement ring, we could actually go out to them and then get them to be talking with the sales representative on SMS. Particularly with engagement rings, if you're going to be proposing, it's probably something you probably want to keep away from your partner so they don't know. So it's a really, I guess, nice way to be able to do that conversational piece without that person needing to be sat at the computer and just actually doing that over text. So it's a really good way to actually use that. And I think, for me is that go ahead and test that sign up with SMS, go and test a response rate in SMS just for kind of, a simple campaign about sort of information, because I think for you, this could again be a very big player for you when it comes to retargeting this year. So from my point of view, guys, that is really kind of the end of the formal bit of me kind of talking at you